just sprung on you. It's so annoying. Stop touching me under the table. Right, welcome along to episode 10 of the Square Go podcast. Episode 10, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for all your like and subscribes. Thanks for telling your mums. Thanks for your shitty comments, Sandy's mum. But most of all, thanks for joining us. My name's Ian. I'm going to be your host today. I'm joined as ever by Steed, aka Certain Breath, which doesn't really work because you've been chewing gum now, so... and also, as ever, by Alexander Henry J. Charles Henderson III.
The third.
Also known as the Chronicles of Hernia.
Take that.
But it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the Square Go podcast a BAFTA award-winning filmmaker with credits that include Trainspotting 2. He's got his own TV show, his own series of films. He's a musician, he acts, he directs, he writes his stuff. Give it up for the mega talented and very down to earth Mr. Garry Fraser.
Woo!
All right, so we're going to get right into talking about the work that you've been doing. There's quite a big body of work to go through, but I thought we should probably start with your background, start with where you're from, and start with a long time ago in a faraway land called Muirhouse.
Yeah. So I'm obviously from Muirhouse in Edinburgh, but jumped about through in Kirkcaldy at T Hall and stuff like that as well. So I'm a bit of a gypsy, to be honest with you. So it never really.
Did you spend a lot of time through Kirkcaldy then? Because I noticed that in the film.
Even driving through, I was like, oh fuck, that's fuck.
It's all coming back.
Aye, it's all even in Everybody's Child. We shot party it through here as well.
Yeah.
So I've got pals in that through here, and sometimes I get a message for people who are like for that previous life who are just like, fuck mate, I can't believe that you're making movies the way you're doing it. Do you know what I mean? But aye, from Muirhouse, long time ago.
We've had Spencer Collins was on podcast like many episodes ago. We had Maureen as well, chatting to them about kind of how they got started in filmmaking, and obviously like both of them have had experiences in their life where they've overcome adversity. They've had setbacks and stuff, but they've had the resilience to sort of keep going. And obviously I know that's something that's part of your story as well. So so I don't think we ever went through a Muirhouse from Kirkcaldy though as kids. Like it's never really been on my radar, although I can see it from my house.
Yeah, well, there used to be the big gas containers. Yeah. So I was in a children's home in Smeaton. So I used to run away for the children's home and I'd see the big gas containers and I would just either hitchhike, fucking get onto a train, just like I'd figure out ways to get back to the big gas, like a homing beacon for myself. Yeah. And then there was a couple, I can't mention any names, but there was a couple of my pals, they were in Melville House, which was a residential school. So I was jumping about up at T Hall and I basically would jump. At the time everybody used the phone boxes, so there's no like mobile phones or any of that shit. Yeah. So the phone box was outside the busy station. So a couple of them says they were getting home for home leave. And because I was jumping about what's it called, Young T Hall Dairy. Oh yeah. Because I was jumping about with all them, they says, their pals are in care as well. So they came home for the weekend and we just fucking robbed everything that we could see, basically. That was just the way we all lived. It was before, like I says it to somebody before, I was really lucky. I got to experience T Hall before smacking that really took the soul out of it, or before the Valley. So it was like maybe just like that cusp of innocence where people were drinking Diamond White or a bit of hash or maybe a bit of speed, but it wasn't really the cause and effect. Not everybody was dying like flies, you know what I mean?
I think you're about the same age as me and Steed were in the same year. Aye, exactly, yeah. We were in the same year at school. Yeah.
I'm a bit younger. I grew up in Sidlaw Street in T Hall as well, but I was a wee bit too young to even know that kind of thing was going on there.
He's watched it all on TikTok.
A wee bit too old for TikTok, not very much.
But it's good that they're salty there for people. I mean, a couple of times, like my wee girlfriend at the time, she used to come through and I was in a secure unit. Like I actually got, what did I get? Like I got like 3 years. My pal had ran over a police officer in a stolen car and I was in the passenger seat. And all the guys that I was jumping about were like 17, 18, and cause I was like 13,
right,
I ended up taking a dairy for something that I done the day after here as well. So,
right,
aye,
through here in Kirkcaldy.
Aye. So we ran, but I was there. I was in the car, so I'd done it. But like, I never drove the car. But I went down to Kirkcaldy police station, handed myself in, and says I was, because my pa was obviously in the cells at the time, and like, I don't know what happens now, but like at the time, Kirkcaldy busies used to batter you. Like it wasn't like they fucked about or anything. It was like the only time that I'd actually been like properly battered, like no LAPD style, fucking battered with the busies. But aye, they were just heavy-handed through here. I don't know what that was, but I think it was the old police station and stuff.
Maybe
like
was he keeping the heroin at the T Hall as well?
Yeah, trying to. But I loved it. I loved like being in Kirkcaldy. I don't know. I'll get killed for saying this, but it's a bit like Dundee a wee bit as well. It's like there's a uniqueness that comes with being close to the water and what life was like in the 70s and the 60s, and that transfer over into the 80s and the 90s, etc. as well. Yeah. You know.
So like I'm thinking, so this is like 90s. You're talking about, and Trainspotting came out as a book.
Aye.
So as a book, I think it was like, I don't know, 93 or something like that. And I remember reading that. And my mate Danny brought a copy of it in, and he was like, "Oh, you have to read this." And I picked it up, and it blew my mind, like, you know, partly because it was a world, you know, obviously everything in Trainspotting is quite amplified, but it's like, it was just, I recognised a lot of the characters. I recognised Begbie, I recognised Spud and stuff like that. So we loved it, and we passed it around like it was a Jolly Roger cookbook. We thought if the teachers catch us with this, like we're screwed. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but our head teacher stood up at assembly one day, and he held up a copy of Trainspotting, and I was like, I think that's the very copy that Danny gave me that I passed on to someone else. I thought, oh shit, here it comes. And Gordon Mackenzie was like, this book has been circulating around. Some of you may have read this book, some of you may not. I urge everybody in this room to read this book.
Oh, really?
And we were all like,
wow.
At that point, nobody read the book. You know, but as soon as the teacher says it.
Yeah, that like for me, that meant it was like a cultural moment. It was just like, this is big. Like when your head teacher's telling you have to read this. But then obviously, like, so for you, you were growing up in Muirhouse, or you had grown up in Muirhouse?
Because I was in care. Just moved I just moved like, what was it, like 37 different places between like 10 and 16. So
that's mental.
So just like constantly moved about, constantly put in secure. Because I was in a secure unit before here, called Rossi Farm, when I was like 10. So basically just like I was running away from one children's home, and I got picked up, and then the police took me to Rossi Farm, and I just remember getting put into these fucking communal showers with these like fucking hairy ass cunts from Aberdeen that had pubes and hairs on their chest and that, and I'm like, my balls hadn't dropped, and I'm just like, what the fuck? So there's like 20, 30 people in the showers. So I done that, and then I came down and went to high school here. Was it St
Andrews?
St Andrews.
Right.
So I went there.
The Catholic one,
Aye, and the only thing that I liked was history. Like I liked going there and doing history, but they kept wanting me to put the school uniform on, and I was like, so that was my fight with them. I think I lasted about 2 months, and then so that was like first year. So that, and then it was like kicked out of there. So it was funny. Like even now, like all these years later, like I just got a job with the busies, believe it or not, like as a peer support worker. So like working with Police Scotland, there's like for 10 to 25-year-olds with a charity, basically working with a charity. But it's like the police are involved in my team and stuff like that as well, and they're fit very much into it. Yeah. And I was thinking, even back here, like, fuck me, man. We were in that children's home, and we went for a walk in Dysart, and we stumbled across, I hope this isn't anybody's uncle or whatever, but we stumbled across this wee fucking house in the woods, and there was nobody there, and I obviously, like, we're just thieves, so we see what we can get, and we ended up stealing these guns. So it's like 13-year-olds, so we stole these guns, shotgun, fucking another gun, and just like a cowboy gun and stuff like that. We took them back to the homes, we stashed them outside, and then we'd go and pop windies and steal car radios. So like we'd go out with this like fucking, it wasn't a shotgun we went with, it was like this, but basically this like two bullets, and we'd fire at a windy, and if nobody came, we'd go and rob the car radio, and if somebody came, we'd be so far away that we weren't getting caught. But anyway, the police had tippled that we'd done this thing, so they basically says like we had to go and take them, show them where everything was, and it would cause a big like fucking, like you could get properly charged with firearms offences, all that sort of stuff.
And then they battered you.
Well, they done that quite a lot. But the police officer at the time, it was like a speed busy. He done but I think he used to be a rally driver or something, but he ended up like getting really pally with me after chasing me through this field. So he came back to the home. I think he might be fancied one of the staff members or something, but he came back to the home. And I ended up like, I don't know how you could do this now, but he ended up like take me back to his house. He would take me out jogging. He would. So I just got this mental relationship with this police officer who was like teaching me how to drive, and he knew I stole cars, just all that shit. So it was just this like weird like relationship with him. But it was good.
Community policing.
Aye, but they just couldn't do that now.
Aye, they didn't seem to have that anymore.
No, but treated like, what's your passion? Cars. Like, okay, let's take you in this big fast thing and I'll show you. But it was good because I think it gave me a bit of conscience as well. You know, could have been a drug dealer, take him under the ring, but it was a busy try to, I don't know, maybe do right by me, but aye.
Yeah. So, Irvin Welsh, he grew up in. Did you see from Muirhouse as well? Yeah.
Aye, he was from Muirhouse as well. I think he went and visited Muirhouse at the weekends and had family there and stuff.
Yeah, but because Trainspotting was, I always associated with Leith, but yeah. And then the film came out. I remember reading some comments that like you'd seen that film and then thought you're living this life. And
well, we were already taking smack at the time, so like because like we grew up with everybody sort of selling smack around us, but they were selling smack and injecting it. So I always just thought that's what a junkie looked like, somebody who took smack and injected it. So when the 90s happened and Trainspotting came out and the music and all the glitz around heroin, it became like, oh, put this on a bit of foil and chase the beetle, and it's not the same as injecting it. So like, tell that to like a fucking 19-year-old or whatever age it was. So that was just became a justifiable use for my use. And like, okay, you know, like the so that was not just me. Like that was like, you could walk into a stair in Nidri or fucking Muirhouse and there'd be 25, 30 kids in the stair just burning smack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So he was writing about like obviously the 80s where things were slightly different, but it sounds like it wasn't that different in terms of
I think
the scale of the use.
No, because they would have obviously started taking that in the 80s.
Yeah.
When everybody was like, I'm going to the pub. So there'd a bit of counterculture to that. You know, like, I'm going to inject smack in the house and listen to whatever fucking music that they all listen to rather than
Iggy Pop.
The pub. Aye, Iggy Pop or all that sort of stuff. So it became like, I guess it was like the junkies would be smoking soap bar and black and taking smack, and the guys in the pub would be drinking like fucking battering their wives, I guess.
Yeah. And there was in your film in Everybody's Child, I think you're talking to your guy you know who's the drug key worker, and he was talking about they'd tested blood from like 187 registered users, and the incidence HIV positivity was like 51% or something, and they compared that with like England and Glasgow where it was between 5 and 10%.
See, that was the studies, like, and even after COVID, like I just didn't know what studies I trust anymore. So that was studies that came out, and like a lot of stuff was based on these studies, but I just didn't know anymore, you know, like even that RFK Jr. or whatever his name is, was it Robert Kennedy Jr.? When I would listen to him talk and they go back to America's and Fauci's, like that research would have been done under the guise of like what Fauci and that was then at the time to determine for HIV medicine.
Do you think it was politicised?
I just didn't know anymore. I'm just so skeptical. I just didn't trust it anymore. That I just, but what it did do was it showed that at the time that the drug use was getting, or the HIV thing that was going on, whatever was attacking their immune system, let's say, something was happening. And when that was going on, the papers were playing a big, like they used to call it the poofed plague, so they used to blame homosexuals for HIV and AIDS. Or the media would take up, it was for Africans because they were shagging monkeys, and so there'd be this like right-wing propaganda trying to stigmatise her. But so once that study came out, they go, oh no, these like fucking kids from Scotland are injecting and they're sharing this virus, and then it became like, okay, this could affect anybody type thing. You know. But yeah, like I don't know, it's like even that, like your history down there, you know, like the docks and like the smacks used to come in for the Russians, and it was a bit like, I don't know, there was a bit of class to heroin. I don't know if that even makes sense, but like it wasn't available all the time. But I guess I don't know, like even for like Trainspotting, but like if you've seen Looking After Jojo and stuff like that, like that's based on folk from my bit as well who had a factory and they were basically getting smacked for the factory, and so they were getting pharmaceutical smack. So, just the amount of money that they all made off it was just incredible. So a wee place like Muirhouse becomes this like sort of epicentre of criminality. You know?
Yeah. So in terms of your life, that obviously everything accelerated for you because you were making money selling. You were
using, taking. Just, I guess as part of that drug, even through here, like we've only done smack or that through here, but Eckies and that had just been kicking in. The raves scene had just, everybody was got to raves. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously they would. Eventually the same guys that were innocent and going to raves, dancing and shagging and doing all that stuff and cuddling gangs that they would used to fight with, then started going back, and eventually they'd go back to the house and start taking some downers for the come down. So like that link between recreational uppers then becomes like jellies, and I guess for that point onwards we start losing generation after generation for the drugs. Do you know what I mean?
And then I remember reading something about 2001. You were saying like after September the 11th that had an effect on the global heroin trade.
Yeah, I was dealing smack for the Turks at the time. I was going down to London and putting like 9 ounces of smack up my arse and coming back up the road. And I got told we were counting money on my living in Flare, and the person down in London phoned us up, and once that happened says you need to come down.
Like on the date, this is on September the 11th.
I had to go down like. Fuck's sake, I went down like 2 days later down to London myself. The guy who I was dealing smack for, he was he's dead now, Terry. He was an ex-marine who, I don't know what, he basically had this connect down in London, but he was an ex-marine, so he was a bit like a nut job, like he had guns and fucking all that sort of shit, but he had the flu, so I had to go down and get this bit of smack. And I still remember like having to go to this phone box in Pimlico, and there's like 14 black guys standing outside this phone box that I got told to go to and go and phone up for the smack. And I walk up to this phone box, and I ended up going into the corner shop and getting a can, putting it in my Gore-Tex jacket and turning it around so you could see like something lumpy in my jacket. Took a deep breath and walked into this group of black folk. I was like, here, I don't know why I put in the Glaswegian accent as well to try and stand a wee bit harder, like, yeah, pal, any chance I can use that phone? And then it changed. Like when I was going down there, all the butchers and stuff like that, they were off fronts for the smack trade. And after September 11th, there was no butchers left in the street, so I'd go down. Before that, there was like 14 butchers and meat everywhere, and just loads of, not just Turkish, but whatever nationality in that bit. But when I went back down, there was like nothing there.
Yeah. So, like obviously that changed things, but then, when was your son born? Your son came along.
27th of April, 22 years ago. That changed everything. Like I guess like. Growing up around all the drug dealers and the new drug dealers that are sort of kicking in, grow up amongst that, and then you have this idea, this notion of, I don't know, maybe watched The Craze too many times, you know, where I come from, everybody watches Jimmy Boyle, The Craze, McVicker, like these Menace to Society, like these movies that, it's a movie, do you know what I mean? It's no real life, but you watch it and you think, that's what I want to be like, I want all that shit. And then I realised, I guess, you'd been sold a lie, I guess.
Yeah.
So when my son was born, I guess that was like the start of like having a wake up call. Something needs to change here.
So what did you do? Like, how did you respond to that then?
Well, I was at the time, because I was obviously like, I was dealing, and I couldn't keep dealing. And like when he was born, Armed Response like fucking shut down the hospital and busted the whole. It was embarrassing now, but like at the time I thought I was like fucking some drug kingpin, and I wasn't. I was just a dafty with a smack habit really. But the busies busted the hospital. I had crack on me, I had smack on me, and just all that horrible shit. And I just in despair. I didn't really. I've never been loved, so like at that time I'd never been loved, so I couldn't love really. Like I didn't know what anything was. I was just confused, lost soul, in the madness. And then I think I got on a prescription of methadone after that. And I done a creative writing course, and I think that kind of was the start of me like changing my life, because when I done the writing course, like my brother and that, they were all in the jail, and like before that, like it'd be your duty to go up to the jail until you get barred, but to keep putting parcels into the jail. Do you know what I mean? Making sure the drugs can go in. And because I grew up through here as well, like I was a bit of a peacemaker because Country Fife didn't, at the time they would put fifers in with chukters and together, so the Edinburgh Cunts and the fifers would be in the same jails. So I think now they all got sent up the road, but so then people would come to me to speak to this person, and then other Country Fife would come to me saying, do you know him? So and I would done my time through in Glasgow, so I had like all these pals for the approved school. So it was just, for me, it was just like, it was the best schooling ever. For where I was in my life. But
so was that what you were writing about? Like creatively, were you writing about your experiences?
I wrote about abuse. I was sexually abused. So like, I guess at the time I didn't know that I was deliberately writing about my trauma.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, created this imaginary thing where this guy had, like, I think I'd watched that there was a movie called 13, which is like 13 different personalities or some shit like that, and it was brilliant. But I took that concept and got in touch with my inner voice, and then when I wrote this short story called The Monster Within, which I actually made into a short film recently, that inner dialogue started channeling itself, and I'd sent my brother in that the short film and the short story, and basically like I started getting like praise for folk, like, like, we read that, and I guess like for me, like, cause I'm a pure scream cunt, like, even I know so much now, but like validation for criminals seems to be like part of that thing, you know. When somebody's like, I am hard time, come up to you and be like, yeah, I really like your shit, and that, you're like, oh fuck, that's cheers, mate. Do you know? So like when I was getting the short story, people were coming up and going, I like your short story, I did really read that much, or just things like that, and it was like positive affirmation. And at the time, like, I was weak emotionally, physically, spiritually, so anything that was just a bit of like positive praise, you know, a bit of people seeker, I guess. So a people pleaser even.
Well, I'd read that you kind of initially reluctant to tell your own story, and like in terms of making a film, but obviously you talked to yourself.
Child.
Yeah.
Well, that was like down the road, because I'd done the creative writing course, and then there was an organisation called Pulton Video, and they said, do you want to make a short film? And I was like, what's a short film? They said, do you want to write a screenplay? And I was like, I didn't really know what a screenplay was, and I went away, and I don't know, it was like, I overcomplicated what a screenwriter was for about 18 years.
Yeah.
Like, but at the time, I liked the idea of being a screenwriter, because there was like a formula there. There was like, there's my action, there's my character, there's my dialogue, there's like, show, don't tell. There was like rules and principles for a story. So we made this film called In for Life, and I was at college at the time on a methadone prescription. I was just absolutely fucked, and I asked the lecturer if I could do the HND, if I could do, like, finish my NC and do an HNC and an HND, and he didn't think I was going to do it, but he basically gave me a shot. And while that was going on, the short film that I made won an MTV award, so MTV flew me down to London.
Was it a narrative film, or was it a documentary?
Drama.
Right.
Drama. Yeah. So they flew me down there. I was working as a night shift security guard. I asked all my pals, we were all out our nuts, who wants to make a film? They all agreed. And on the Monday morning, not one person showed up. So it was me, my missus at the time, and my wee laddie, and the sound operator.
So you're like, I'm an actor now.
I'm an actor now. I knew I could do it. But I was fucked. Like, even when I look at it, I'm like, fuck me. Like, I look unhealthy, but I knew, like, that instinctual thing, like, I can do this. Like, I've been acting all my life, and I know I can act. I didn't need to go to drama school to teach me how to deliver a performance. Like, I know, and even then, with the much drugs to kill a horse, I still felt like when you have positive energy or a type of energy, it just shines through everything. So we done that, got the MTV award, and then I went on the HND. And then when I was doing the HND, my pal had died of a methadone overdose, so I wrote this short film called Tolerance, and that was my graduation film. But like, that's when I knew I wanted to be directing. Like, that's when I knew, like, I didn't give a fuck about being a screenwriter. Like, I'm going to be a writer and director. And they're like, you need to pick something. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And so, like, I started looking at, I guess, like, Tarantino, or like different people who were writer direct, that auteur. And when I was at college, I was studying the theory around film, you know, the psychoanalysis of a script, or like how psychology plays into your work, and just loads of stuff like that. I guess, even though I was a bit fucked, stuff was actually sticking into me. And
Yeah.
like, we had shopping trolleys, and like the community didn't make films, but we had shopping trolleys. We had all the young team that was up to all sorts, like fucking running around with us. We had stolen cars, like just everything that you're not supposed to do to make a film. We had every part of that in. We had a guy who was stabbed.
Real guns.
No, no, definitely never, ever. That's never happened. But we had a guy who was stabbed, like fell into our film set, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Gary," and that, and the crew looking at me like, "What the fuck's going on here?" So we're in a high rise, and the guy's like, and I'm like, he's like, "Can I sit and watch?" I'm like, "Mate, I need an ambulance." Like, his blood's like fucking pouring out. He's like, "Can I sit and watch?" I'm thinking, this guy's got to fucking die when we're shooting the scene. But I guess for me, it was like, I became important, even if in my own inflated ego, I became important, and I knew that this is what I want to do. And when I graduated from college, I went up to the Edinburgh College of Art in Napier with the other students, and they were all saying, "I want to do this, and I want to do this at uni." And I just felt like, at the time, I was lacking in self-belief. So I just thought university wasn't for me, and I thought, well, if university is not for me, then what is for me? And I thought, well, I could possibly go down to my scheme and make Mary these films and try to, at the time, I guess it was like make short film after short film so you can make a feature film, and you're sort of, you've landed on your feet. But I went through, I guess this was a bit of a game changer, I went through to Scottish Screen at the time because they had the new entrance training course, the NETS course. And when I went through there, like, I knew this is what I wanted to do. As soon as I walked into this office, it's like Creative Scotland now, but as soon as I seen the film posters and I seen people's stories, people who had taken these stories, like Ken Loach or whatever the fucking story was, I was like, I want my poster on these walls. Like, I started like feeling like I know I can do this. Even because like when I was making the short film in Muirhouse, all the students in that were saying it felt like we were with a film director. Like, we felt like this guy had directed before, and I guess for me, what became like is now like a process. I didn't realise at the time, but like doing stuff instinctual, having a bit of a plan, great. But like the magic happened. Be like, I don't know what we're doing, but we've got to do something.
Yeah.
And that was a bit easier. I didn't have the confidence to tell anybody. I didn't know what I was doing. So sometimes I would just lie.
Yeah.
You know, I'd do this and do that. We're not going to break the line. Just come out with terminology. I didn't know. Yeah, we'll just handle that in edit, and just loads of random shit that was just like no awareness of where the light was or anything like that. But like, I studied the craft. Even now, like, every day I study directing. Like, I study an aspect of directing every day. Like, even now. So like, but back then, the graduation film I sold to the prison, they says it was the most realistic portrayal of an overdose caught on camera. It changed policy, it changed law. So I started seeing movie making as maybe a vehicle for activism that could maybe like highlight shit that I felt was important to me. And then Scottish Screen took me on as they says, we've never done this before, but we're going to adopt you onto our course. And that gave me like access to the Savalas Sound Studio, to these places and these things, and obviously in the film industry. And I got to go to the film festivals. So by going to the film festivals and meeting people and stuff like that, I also had this crate that I got, and I went up to Edinburgh Film House and I put the crate outside the film house, and I jumped on my MacBook at the time, and I was writing a script for a short film, and I put my showreel there, and it was like a quote for Boys for the Black Stuff that says, "Geezer Joe back and do that." So I had my showreel there, and this guy walked past me and he asked me basically like, what was I doing, and I told him I'm going to be a director one day. I'm going to work my way up in the industry. I'm going to start as a runner and be making short films and that. And he's like, "Can I get your thing?" And I gave him it. Then he went in, and I was like, maybe I should have took more advantage of this opportunity. So I went in the door behind him. The door bumped into his back, and by this time there's like a crowd of 20 people. So this guy's obviously famous. I didn't know it was Shane Meadows.
Oh, fuck.
But I didn't know it was Shane, so I didn't even know who Shane Meadows was. So he was like, "Oh, we were just talking about you." He's like, "Do you want to come for a drink?" And it was wee Thomas and wee Thomas's dad, Thomas Turgois. Was it Turgois? What's the wee guy for This Is England?
Oh yeah, I
So
can't remember.
He was there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a wee lad anymore. It was like fucking 19.
Yeah.
It was Summerstown, so they'd come up for Summerstown.
Yeah.
So I had a drink with them, and I forgot about it. I went home, and the next day morning I got a phone call for Shane Meadows, and he basically says, "I watched your student short film." He says, "It's the best student film I've seen." He says, like, "I can't believe how blah blah blah." And then he said, "Do you want to come up and watch my movie at the film festival?" And I was like, I do belong up at the film festival. Like, every time I'm up that tune, I've got warrants out, fucking fighting with cunts, like at the last place I need to be is a film festival. And again, it was just that probably playing into my own stereotype and lacking disbelief again, and lacking belief in myself, or having no self-esteem. And then I done it. I went up to the film festival, walked into this crowd of people. He came, got me, took me to the screening. We watched a movie. And then at the end, all these film students from Napier and stuff like that were asking if you got any advice for a filmmaker. And he was like, "Where's Garry Fraser?" And he pointed me out, and he was basically like, "Do what this guy's doing. Like, you're here studying, you're sitting in a classroom, learning the theory, but like what he's doing is like how you actually." And I was like, "Fuck me." So that, I guess I developed like, and people at that point then, no people started knowing who I was, but like Hannah McGill or different people who were running film festival stuff, and were going, "Is there maybe something that we could pass him on to, or is there something to other?" Because they'd seen the passion. Like the passion was like, "I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that." And then that got me to Channel 4, and I made a film for Channel 4. I was homeless at the time. Made a film about a soldier coming back from Afghanistan. That was my first experience of like working with a professional crew, a proper crew. And then
whereabout was the film?
It was all shot at Muirhouse again. Everywhere I shot was in Muirhouse, because
you knew it, and you knew where to go. And
nobody would fuck about. And it's not because people feared me. It wasn't people feared, but people loved the passion. And when you've got one of your own doing something, people were more likely to come out and put a cable in there, or bring out cups of tea there, or if somebody did, God forbid, if somebody did try and get wide with the crew or cast or something like that, somebody else for the area would have helped me with that and deal with that. So like it became like, if he makes it, we're making it, sort of attitude, I think, for a lot of people at the time. So that was really good. And then after that got me into film festivals. I went down to Sheffield Doc Festival, and at the time the Scheme had just come out.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "What the fuck is this shit? Like, this is like so bad." And like, even I was just saying it, there are people in T Hall dying in valleys or whatever, and then you'd see this thing called the Scheme, and it just belittled. To me, it belittled every drug death and made it like very easy to laugh at this group of people for a scheme, rather than look at, I guess, be kind and compassionate. So I completely disagreed with the commission editor, and the next day I basically chased him to the train station saying, "Give me a shot to make a feature documentary about Edinburgh and its HIV epidemic." And he basically says, "Come and meet me when you come back up the road." I went into the office to meet him, and right on the spot he was like, "Look, that's already been done, but if you do a documentary about your life growing up like that, I'll commission that." And in my head I'm like, I've just made all these short films, tried to get a feature, and now I've got a feature film, and I'm like, yeah, I just fucking sold my soul for that. Like, yeah, I want to do it. So that became Everybody's Child.
Yeah. Garry, do you want to cue up the trailer?
When I have a feeling like this, my first thought is heroin. There's no other thought. First thing I think about is smack. I fucking miss it. I miss it a lot.
Seems to be a recurring theme in Garry's life, that everybody just takes me in. Families take me in left, right and centre. Always in the search for a family or people to take me in and love me.
My dad couldn't handle me anymore because of the wee bastard. My mum couldn't handle me anymore because of the wee bastard. They're talking about somebody that's younger than what my wee lad is now. So that's me just been for a AIDS test and a Hep B booster. I'm sitting in that fucking surgery, and as I'm sitting in that surgery, I'm looking around me, thinking how many people have been here before me, the story that I'm trying to tell.
One thing everybody in this room hates about
junkies.
But who aren't even bothered about it. That's what annoys me. They'll walk about the streets with their burns and everything. Pure Mongol fight. That's pure dirty. The burn doesn't deserve any of that shit. Just like what happened to us when we were growing up.
I think most alkies or most junkies in that say, got to hit rock bottom first. And I hit rock bottom with a crack. wanted to just show people what it's like to come off opiates. Just, I don't think I'm going to manage to do it. I really don't think I'm going to manage to do it. Sometimes in life you've just got to nail your colours to the mast, and that's what I've done when it's come to the filmmaking. I've decided not to be a criminal, not to be a drug dealer. This is what makes sense to me, being creative. It took me to become a man to realise what a man was and frustrations and what...
Well, you realise what hassle you caused now,
Some raw living, heading for a Scottish prison. Fuck your flawed system, I've risen above the law. Listen, I've been to hell and back, smoking crack, selling smack, try to get my story straight so I can tell it back. Makes my mates are deceased, I feel ashamed of my deeds. You grow up hard when you're raised on the streets. Junk blow and a knife, 2 lassies, 1 boy and a wife. The story of my life.
So yeah, Everybody's Child's, I think, on Prime just now, eh?
Yeah,
I discovered it after I bought it on iTunes.
It's everywhere, but like, I think it's weird because like we're trying to do a follow up this year called Full Circle, because it's like, obviously, like I feel younger now looking at that. Like I look younger now than what I did fucking 10 years ago. Is
that how long? That was 10 years ago.
2013,
right?
2013. But I guess it's that same way as well. Everything's a learning lesson. Like when you make movies, you're just glad to make movies. You didn't think about what contracts you're signing and stuff like that. So like, after that, like, cause I like rap music, like I guess when I look at some of the rappers that I like, they're always doing this thing about owning their masters.
Aye.
And I was like, I took that decision then, like fuck this. If I'm ever doing something again, like I own everything.
Yeah.
Like I can't put my life out like that for a production company to own 40% of producers' profits and me no understanding really what I'm signing and kind of like all that shit. So I took the decision after that to be like, right, everything that I do now, I have to start having ownership over it.
I was going to ask, because I felt like I had to ask what it was like actually doing that, because...
It was brilliant. Like, to be honest with you, it was like I guess my favourite word these days is catharsis, but like to take on physical abuse, sexual abuse, drug addiction, culture, like the truth behind Trainspotting, all that sort of shit that people talk about. But like, even like Roseanne, who we met, that was in T Hall. Like, so Roseanne, who we went through and met, and like she's passed away now, so like, rest in peace to her. But like, I don't know, to be able to like pay respect to them as well and do it in a good way. Do you know what I mean? Like, these people that I just think they're amazing.
Well, it felt like you left no stone unturned, and you know, you put yourself through a lot just to make the film, and that I wondered how uncomfortable it was, or how rewarding it was.
It was hell as well. Like I guess the rewards come now when I look at it and go, fuck me, look how skinny I am, and look how ripped I am now. Like, look how weird I look. Like, look how unhealthy. Obviously, like a junkie at the time, or an addict. Obviously, look an addict, but like, now I look at my growth. Very rarely do I ever look at the growth. I'm usually so much in the struggle for something else that I'm not taking on. But like, for that, like, went to film festivals with that, so like I'd never left the country before, so like they were like, do you want to go to like Hamburg Film Festival and Leipzig film? I was nominated between so many other filmmakers for in Europe at Leipzig, so it was in competition at Leipzig Film Festival, so I got to go to that, experience German culture, got to go to Norway, Bergen in Norway, the Bergen Film Festival. So then I got to experience like Norway, and I went to their Needle Park. So even in Norway, like, we got our idea that there wouldn't be heroin addicts in Norway, but there was like a big park with a heroin problem. So I got to meet their drug users and stuff like that. And I was at this film festival. I didn't know the free bar wasn't a free bar. Guy just kept coming to my room and going, would you like me to fill this up for you? And I was like, mate, this is like the best cunt ever. Like, they do back. So like, basically, and then so this guy was filling up my. It was a bit of a nightmare, but this guy was filling up my. And not like, drink is fucking dear in Norway. I did not know this, so I'm like, a can of beer, a couple of cans of beer, everything's good. And then that night time, I'm asking like, anybody got a bit of weed, and they were like, we can't get weed, but there's a bit of hash. And I'll remember this till I die. So I'm like, guy gave me a joint of hash, and then one of the guys for the film festival pulled me aside. He's like, would you like to come up to the King's Suite? He's like, normally when the King stays in Bergen, this is his place. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I go up, and he leaves me basically in the King's Suite, and I get the joint out. So I go into the King's bed and fucking lie in the King's bed and have a joint on the King's bed. This was one of the weird. I'm just lying there going, I'm lying on the King's bed this week, come to Muirhouse. And then the next again day, I had to go to Leipzig. And when I tried to leave the hotel, they were wanting my passport and that, because there was like a £400 fucking thing, and the film festival weren't going to pay it, and it was just, it was a nightmare. But what I did remember about that is, because I was still in active addiction, like, I took drugs with me out the country.
That's what I was going to ask. Was like, were you using at the time, and did you?
But they ran out.
Aye.
So like they ran out there. So like my dihydrocodone, like basically I was using like Valleys and Diffs at the time. So it was like dihydrocodone and diazepam. I was using them quite a lot, but they ran out while I was there. So then the withdrawals had kicked in. So I remember doing the screening, and they were like, how does this feel? I'm like, yeah, and I just done the bravado thing, like, yeah, it doesn't affect me, and I'm just sitting there going, this is like the worst mushroom trip ever. Fuck. And I thought I was going to shite myself. It was just, but we walked up to the cinema, and I was like, all these people are standing in like a queue for something that was sold out, and I'm like, well, that looks good, what are they going in to see? And they were like, that's a queue for your movie. So there was like easily like 100 folk waiting in a queue just in case I take, and I was like, wow, kind of like, so it was that experience. And then when I went to Leipzig, that's when it was really horrible. Like, I loved Leipzig, but like the withdrawals for the Valleys had kicked in now, so that I could have handled the opiate withdrawals, but the benzo withdrawals are like extreme. So I remember just like flinging myself in the shower, diarrhea, sweats, anxiety, and just like living in the shower. And they would shout me out for a screening, and I would go out to the screening, go back into the shower. They would shout me out for something, and I'd go out, put this brave face on with this suit and all that on, and then I just couldn't breathe. And I think it was like when I got home, I was like, I need to get clean. Like, I cannot do the two
This
things.
is not the glamorous life of an international filmmaker that you signed up for.
No, definitely no. And at the time, I'd sort of, when I came back, I got clean. I don't know how I managed to get clean, but like I managed to like stop taking shit. And I remember like I flung myself into a homeless hostel. I was like withdrawn off of methadone and all the rest of it in this homeless hostel. And the production company that I made that way, they asked me to go down to London to meet this wee guy who became a pal, but a wee guy called Sonny Green, whose record label was like Pete Doherty and all them guys. So I went down there. Amy Winehouse had just died like 6 weeks beforehand. So I went down to London, met wee Sonny, told him to focus on his music career, didn't make a doc, because it was like they wanted to do a similar documentary, and I was like, I said to him, don't do it. I was like, don't do it. Like, you're an amazing musician. Like, don't fling out all your demons for them.
Yeah.
Keep it for the music. Do you know what I mean? And he took that advice. But then we went up to meet Pete Doherty and that in Camden, and one of the guys for the Baby Shambles sat down next to me, and he fucking put all this smack on a foil, and he was burning the smack off the foil. And I was like, and it smelled like the best smack ever. I was like, you didn't get this in your house, you know? It was like the fucking top quality smack. And I'm like, the whole sweat, the hairs on my body were standing up. And the wee guy Sonny was basically like, and this was in Amy Winehouse's house.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how we were in there, but as I say, the flowers and all that shit were outside it. And then it was weird. Like, I think that was the first time that I knocked back smack. Like, and wee Sonny was basically like, just smoked weed with me, and I was like, fuck it. So I just kept smoking weed, and I went to see that other side of London, which was just like them all fucking fucked on smacking that, and all these like tidy 20-year-old beautiful fucking whatever looking, and it was that weird like rock star shit that I'd never really seen before, and I was just like, I don't want anything to do with that. So I was in their Jeep, and I says to them, I was like, drop me off here. And they were like, no, this is a really rough area in London. I went, mate, I really couldn't give a fuck. Like, drop me off here. So I got out that, and then the wee guy Sonny, he came out with me as well, and that was the start. That was the start of me, like.
Yeah, I can do this.
If I keeps doing this, I'm in with a chance. And then I had to fling myself into like Narcotics Anonymous and these fellowship meetings and 12-step programs, or I didn't do a 12-step program, but I was around a lot of people who I respected and stuff like that. And what I ended up doing was, me being the director, I went to these meetings and I was like, I think I've got a good idea for a film. So then I started casting them all. So instead of focusing on my recovery, I've now got all these ex-addicts in these rooms coming out with all this amazing like fucking stuff. And that's when I got a house, and then I got the message for Irvin Welsh, and he was like, Danny Boyle's doing Trainspotting 2 if you want to.
Yeah. So did you reach out to Irvin Welsh first? No, right?
No,
okay.
no. But I was doing something. No, I wasn't. In fact, no. Was I? I think I reached out to him to try and adapt something that we're talking about now, but a sci-fi thing that he'd done, which I just loved. It was like fucking aliens that steal Micah Devlin, Hibbsy's top boy, and take him through the universe, and the alien gets a habit on Embassy Regal and has to come back to Earth, and that's just. And I think with world leaders and everything that's going on now, I messaged them and I was like, mate, I still think this would be a great fucking movie, like scheme cunts and aliens and it's out there. But so I think that conversation had happened, and we got a wee bit of development money for Creative Scotland to try and do something, but it didn't work. The scriptwriter shat it, so I got like a proper scriptwriter, and then when he knew that Irvin and that was getting on board, he just went, I got writer's block or something, and I'm like,
oh man,
scriptwriter, like what the fuck,
yeah,
you know, like that's. So I just didn't believe in writer's block, so I just thought he shat it. And then Irvin phoned me up, I got the flat, all sorts of PTSD and everything else that was still like part of me. Yeah. And then he was like, Danny wants to speak to you. And then at the time, like even while I was homeless, I was still being creative. So like I had an office, and the office became like a bit of a party office as well. So like between 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it operated as like a graphic design studio. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they all fucked off, it was just like. So every company would be up the tune, and cause the office was close to the tune in Edinburgh, the city centre, it just meant
the start of the night
and whatever hostel that I was in, I would just, you had to be in for 11 o'clock, but I would spend my time around these iMacs and editing and try to do stuff. So we used it for workshops for the grey area. So I'd get all these folk down, they would come and all these folk in recovery, and we'd do these potential storylines about rehab and all that sort of shit. And then Danny came down to the office and he was asked me what I thought of the first one, and I told him I didn't like it. I said it glamorised smack a bit, and he says we had to do that because it was heroin. It was like,
you can kind of understand why they made those decisions to stylise and to kind of.
It would be a horrible film if it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? But they have to obviously
make it palatable.
They have to make it a movie. Do you know what I mean?
I think they tried to toe the line between still making it look like grim, like, you know, but also just not making these places look like. As an audience, you just want to switch it off because you don't want to spend 90 minutes.
You can't be too on the nose with like there's certain things, like even the guy dying in Kevin McKidd's character that dies of AIDS and stuff. There were certain storylines that like I wish they focused on that. Yeah. How families were affected by HIV and stuff, but they didn't have enough time and like.
Yeah, and they deliberately made things like Renton's overdose is like the nicest overdose you could ever have because he's in a rug and
it's almost poetic. Isn't it?
He's got Lou Reed playing and stuff like that. But
but I guess it done what it was designed to do. You know, it's a feature film. It's needing commercial appeal. They're needing to sell the fucking thing, and it was a culture moment. I think at the time with Britpop, it was very much like this is, and that's what Edinburgh became known for. That came out, and people go,
it's kind of the biggest cultural export we had in the 90s. Scotland. I mean,
it was because you knew these guys. Even when I done part 2, like I remember sitting in the pub with Begbie, and I was watching Robert Carlyle, and I was like, I didn't think Begbie's your Edinburgh hard man. Like I was thinking that because I was like, you watch it and you go, this is your stereotype. I was watching, I'm going, I didn't think he's the hard man. I think he's the guy that argues with lampposts going up the road.
Wee man syndrome.
Kicks a dog, which is different for that Fife hard man that I've seen, or that Edinburgh hard man, or the Glasgow hard man. But it was that sort of shit. But so then I says to Danny when he was at Mines at the office, I was like, do you want to come up to our workshops and see some of the guys? We're doing this thing called the Grey Area. And he asked me what it was, and I told him it was like a web series thing. He's like, didn't tell anybody it's a web series, or they'll nobody's fund it. Like it's. You want to say it's a series or it's a TV or whatever. So he came up and my guys just pulled it out. They didn't expect him to be there. They all delivered like raw emotional performances, and then he was like, I'm going to get all your guys cast in T2, and I was like, brilliant. And then for a couple of weeks I was feeling sorry for myself because I was thinking I've got them cast and I've fucked up for myself. And then he asked me to act in it originally. He says to play the facilitator in the scene, and I says I didn't act. I says I really want to like direct. Like that's what I want to do in my life. I didn't want to jump into now being on the front of the camera. And that was a good decision. Like instead, because even if I didn't get anything, I would have just had like I'm still a director. But after it, he phoned me up and he was basically like, do you want to be the second unit director on T2? And I was like, fuck aye. And I remember like after the phone call, like I just spent 13 months homeless, just got clean. And like that, I felt like that was my reward. So then I had to start taking Ewan Bremner to these Narcotics Anonymous meetings with me. So he'd be doing some research, so I'd take him there. And then, I don't know, like I remember we went to this like chapel and this nurse's, nun, take us through the back, and she done mass for me and Danny, and like just all that sort of shit started getting like a bit surreal.
Yeah.
And then Irvin tweeted it saying, Gary, congratulations on the job. And then once he'd done that, like the socials just became like just red balls. It was just like fucking it was just like that overnight, like people contacting journalists and like all that sort of shit.
Wow.
Front page of the paper was Donald Trump being elected, and then ex-heroin addict directing Trainspotting. So it was like all that shit.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
And then walking into a studio, like for like, I guess like looking back on it now, I should have had more confidence. But like when I go in the studio, because I'd never been in a studio before, it's like a building site. You didn't really know where you can walk, where you can't walk. And I remember saying to this guy, I was like, "Can I walk that way there?" He was like, "Gary, you're second director. You can do what the fuck you want." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I kept like going on the bus with all the riff raff crew.
Yeah.
And they had like Range Rovers, so I'd kept getting shouted off the bus to get off the bus and go in the Range Rover with them. So it was like weird things, you know. He'd be on the phone speaking.
There's like a hierarchy.
Well, he'd be speaking to like Angelina Jolie, like Anthony Dormanto would be speaking. Like, so I'd be in the Range Rover and he'd be speaking to Angelina Jolie because he'd done. I just finished a feature with him, and then he was speaking to Oliver Stone. So I'm like, fuck me, like you know, Oliver Stone's like one of my favourite directors. So like I'm sitting next to somebody who's actually, so there was no degrees of
the 7 degrees, 7 degrees of separation.
And then because I used to watch the Directors Round Table and stuff like that, I seen Danny Boyle with Quentin Tarantino, and then I was like, when I met Danny Boyle, I'm like, fuck, he knows Quentin Tarantino. Like,
I'm feeling a bit like that right now, by the way, because you know Anthony Dormanto, so.
Well, there's something like we normally talk about a lot with our guests, and there's something we've experienced as well, is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, like at any point in these situations, did you feel you had that? You're like, fuck, what am I doing here?
Quite up until like, so they gave me a list of stuff, and they were like, so they gave me the big shooting script. I realised I was nothing to do with my addiction, that I was there. I'm now like doing as like a fucking serious director. I've got a crew, I'm away doing stuff. I felt like an imposter. Like we went out for food with Anthony and that. And a couple of my mates, Asian laddies, showed up to the restaurant, and they were like, to Anthony, like, you working for Gary and that then? And I'm like, they haven't got a clue who Anthony Dormanto is. You know what I mean? I'm sitting saying, like, this is like the third best cinema photographer in the world, man. You can't say you working for Gary. Like, you know what I mean? But that imposter syndrome, right up until I'd done a fight scene, I think it was a deleted scene, but I basically got a chance to do a fight scene, done that myself, and there was a scene after it which is Sick Boy and Renton's first ever injection, so I had to go down to Leaf Flats with them, and at the time they would give us all these like security guards, you know, these big massive Eastern European cunts, and I'm like, mate, I can't take you down Leaf, and they're looking at me going, we need your security to be next to you and that, and I'm like, can't do that. I was like, I says, if I take big fucking Igor there, like the first thing that we Jimmy or whatever is going to do up there, first thing we Jimmy and that's got to do is start flying shit up. So I was like, can you stay in the car? So he's staying in the car.
They just start on him because he's massive.
Aye, definitely. And the people were already flinging stuff and things like that. So I was just like, so having to like deal with Leaf when it was like all gone mental. But when I done the scene, like I looked around and I seen the makeup artist greeting and I seen somebody else greeting, because I was saying to the wee guys in that, like, I guess the realities of heroin, I didn't want the actors thinking heroin was glamorous, and I guess because of the way I done the scene, like about people dying and fucking like really informed the scene like that, when I put music and stuff like that on, and people just cried, and I don't even know if the scene made it into the film. I don't think it might be in the deleted scenes, but between the two scenes, it gave me the confidence to go, no, I've got no imposter syndrome anymore, and this is what I do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that kind of left after that.
So there is a cure.
Yeah, I just keep making, and just keep showing up. And if you're fully like fucking no confidence, or if you're fully that like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here, just wing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I was watching a interview today on Joe Rogan. Director, I don't even know what the director is, but when he says that I'm quite a spontaneous director, I don't know what I'm doing until I show up. I'm like, that's me. Like, and that attitude now is like, I might not have the confidence to tell somebody what I know, but I can tell them what I didn't want.
Yeah.
You know, and I understand the crafty filmmaking now, I guess, like how many shots is needed, especially in drama, like how many shots is needed to make that work.
Yeah.
I'm editing in my head, so I've got that like Ridley Scott thing that happens with my head. I didn't watch movies, like I examine them, tear them apart, and ingest them like that, because I need to communicate a visceral language with the DP. So like once that starts happening, I already kind of even with Supply and Demand Part 3, like I didn't write anything for 7 months, and I drove the car for my bit to training in the morning, and I seen it start to finish, and I was like, right, I'm not going to write this out, but if it's still the same vision in a few days' time, it means that it's solid in my head. It's not just these wee first ideas of like, oh, that would be good and this would be good. And so I left it like 4 days and then wrote it out as an outline, like, okay, this happens, just as a sentence, like fucking Polski's trying to get a council house, the wee guy gets trafficked. So just like all these emotional beats.
Yeah.
And then I used AI to help me then like expand on that. Like I've got this idea, and what I've done was for ChatGPT, I gave them part 1 and part 2, the scripts that I've written myself. Yeah. And says I'm now going to do part 3. Help me do a summary, a story summary. Yeah. And that came back with a story summary within seconds, and I was like, that's it.
It's scary.
Yeah, I was like, fuck me. Like obviously, like tools are there to be used.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I'm dyslexic as fuck. Like I've struggled as a screenwriter for years and years and years. But if I can take my mambo jumbo world and input into ChatGPT and say, make it feel like I can pitch this, write a budget for this. Like there's certain things that I'm just like, right, now I don't need a team of writers. Like I can do that enough so I can present it to a commission editor and tell them. And they'll be like, no, I never used AI. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, use it and be like, I used AI and this is how I used it. But that's not going to tell me when I'm doing workshops with the guys. Yeah. They're going to put their lived experience, their life experience and bring the life to it, you know? So,
well, because you were talking about the certain do's and don'ts with AI, especially with writing for film stuff.
Some of that's changed. So it was in the old days that anything you submitted, you would kind of lose an element of license and copyright over. Whereas now you can use whatever the output is, and that's yours. But all they say is we can't guarantee that AI is not going to give somebody else something similar if they give it a similar prompt.
And you've already gave it something as well, so it's like, okay,
you don't, it's just going to chew that up.
Give me an idea for a movie.
Exactly.
Garry Fraser film.
Skynet's growing.
Aye.
Well, I asked it.
Write a Garry Fraser film.
Well, I asked it, do you know who I am? And it says, yes, you're known for... And I was like, fuck
it's
me.
It's usually a couple of years out of date, but well known stuff.
It was pretty bang on. I have conversations with AI quite a lot these days. I'm fucking boring cunt, do you know what I mean? So
you mentioned DPs. You worked, is it Gary Torrance?
Gary Torrance, he's for Fife and Off, funny enough. He's for Metal.
Ah, nice.
Metal.
Heavy metal.
So you worked with him right back since Everybody's Child, is that right? Or
Everybody's Child. I met him at the film festival. That's what I mean about the film festivals. They're just great places to meet people. So I met him at the film festival, got a good relationship with him. I needed, it's not inverted snobbery for me, I needed somebody who understood working class culture, and I guess somebody for Fife understands what working class means. Do you know what I mean? So he came on board. We shot Everybody's Child, and then with the grey area, I pulled him back in again. And then we done the grey area again as well. For the workshops, like my thing with the workshops is like, cause they're a bit chaotic. Like they could go on for years. Like I could watch them all day. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not really about making a movie in the workshops. Like I'll write a script, I'll write dialogue, I'll write these scenes, and I'll hand them to people. and they'll go, "That's shite, Gary, see," but and I'll just be like, "Everything you've said is much better than what I've just spent like 6 hours writing, but could I take a wee bit of what you've done there and put it next to that, and then could you try?" And before you know it, going, now they're taking direction. Now they know where the beats are in a scene, like how to hit at certain bits and stuff like that. And that just means that like most of my guys are just so fucking like scared of looking like poofs, is what they tell me. "Gary, just didn't make me look like a poof." I'm like, "Didn't worry, mate." Do you know what I mean? But I guess that's their the bravado, the masculinity.
It's,
I don't know what
the vulnerability that's going to happen.
But what I do
totally
is I didn't make them look hard.
Yeah.
But I make them look emotional. I make them like what I say to them, like, if you come in try to be hard, you've killed the scene, because if you come in with aggression, it's like a fight. The fight's shite.
Yeah.
The build up to the fight is where you need to be. The sex is shite. As soon as the sex has happened, the chase is away, so the beautiful part is almost done. You know, you've put. So I feel like it's like being drunk. Then you come in and play drunk. Come in and play sober. Somebody like a drunk person try to be sober. You know, drunk people then fucking go about the place going, "I'm drunk." They go about the place going, "There's nothing wrong with me." Do you know what I mean? So, like, once you start doing that, it changes something in them, and I think that the relationship's met. So, but Gary's very like, he's very like organised, and he wouldn't allow me to show up and go, "I don't really know what I'm doing today."
Yeah,
so he's very
he wants to know
compartmentalise everything. He'll have fucking a folder for everything, and kind of like when you see their edits, sometimes I walk into like an editor's, like a proper editor's edit, and I'm like, I wish I was this organised. Like mine's is just like, just keep chiseling away, and eventually something presents itself, and for that I'll refine it. But then you go, to get that balance right between like, okay, we're going to create like a proper shooting style here, we're going to create these sequency shots, and it's based on these performances here, and because they're on actors, like learning very early, like start with close-ups, because if you start on wides with non-actors, their first 2 performances are great, and after that they start acting. So like it's, and do you know what I mean? So it's almost try to get the challenge right, like for that, and if you try and tell them like we've got to do this scene, but you walk there for you. As soon as you start telling them where to walk, they're fucked. So you have to give a rehearsal. You go, just do it for yourselves first, and then that's when I'm thinking, like, okay, that camera shot will work there, that'll work there, and they feel comfortable, and they've done it themselves. So again, it's that meeting everybody in the middle, and that's why I guess with the grey area, let's just it was fucking an amazing experience just working with all these folk.
So where was that shown?
On BBC Scotland. I took it down because like I'm basically trying to do part 2 of that as well. So like part 2 Everybody's Child, part 2 of the grey area, part 3. But the grey area, what did I do? I put it on YouTube, and then I took it down off of YouTube because it done like a channel strike, and then I had I was going to put it up onto Film Hub, but after spending like a year looking at film distribution, I was like, I'm going to get bumped. Like I know.
Film Hub is it's got pitfalls like.
And it's great.
Is that the one Dominique's in?
Yes.
Aye.
Yeah,
because she's in Dynamite. She slaps my brother.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
She's brilliant.
Yeah. She's so good.
She was brilliant. She was a proper actress. So like, you're getting that balance right between the non-actors and the actors as well.
Like, exact same. Yeah. There's with Dynamite. Or most of her stuff. There's a lot of non-actors. Musicians, I find great to work with.
And you gave a proper actress one line and dubbed it over in German.
Or Russian.
Yes, what I would do differently is
I think boxers make good actors. I think fighters, because they're like they're used to having that fight ego, and it's great to get fighters to play parts because you know they're not going to have ego around stuff. If you get somebody who's a non-fighter try to do like a fight sequence, they're going to hurt somebody or hurt themselves. But if you've got guys that do MMA, fucking Muay Thai, boxing, whatever, you then have like, okay, when they talk to each other, they know, all right, I'm going to fling a jab, cross, hook, and you've got to slip this, and so it then it's like that film language. They know, so they're performing, and then they're used to performing as well. So,
can you see yourself doing a fiction film in that world as well, kickboxing and stuff?
I would love to. Like we done like for part 2 of Supply and Demand, I deliberately wanted to do like a proper fight scene because I hadn't seen that in Scottish movies. Like I hadn't really seen like a sequence which was like extended no Matrix, but like that sort of like this is fighting's happened here. This all that sort of stuff between Chris Bungard and Phil Coppola.
I think
definitely gave Green Street a run for its money.
That's what I thought. That.
We've got the. Can we chuck up the trailer for Supply and Demand 2? Yes, I think we've got that.
Take this. Back to this.
Shit isn't fucking funny, like.
Go on all units. Backup requested Maguire's Yard Leaf. Fucking move!
Surely they've got enough evidence to take Charlie down by now.
You want them all. Playing a game. You know, Charles, one of my wee chickens are going big. Fucking pricks.
Days you're told. You understand.
So each episode is about like 45 minutes?
45 minutes. I think we've got to try and push the boat out a wee bit on part 3 to see how far we can actually, like, what was it, 37 minutes, 40 minutes? So I think like we'll try and
to get it as a short, you mean?
Well, to try and get in maybe 60 minutes.
Right.
To try and put it the other way. So like precursor, like part 1, part 2,
right, yeah.
and then obviously part 3. I think at the moment what we're trying to do is raise money for part 3. And STV have says that they'll take it and give it a 50-50 profit share or something. I can't remember what the exact percentage was, but they give a profit share. So it now means there's a platform for it. Like YouTube is shite. Like, like
STV Player.
STV Player.
So just for part 3, or they take the whole lot?
Free them.
Amazing.
They wanted me to do part 3 so they could take it. So it's a trilogy, obviously. And that's good for me because it gives me closure. Like, it's 5 years.
Yeah.
Been working on it for, so it gives me closure.
I was going to say we can link up in the below our podcast for Supply and Demand Part 1 and 2 because they're both out. Or we can not do that if you want to drive people into STV Player.
No, but it'll be, I don't know when it'll go into STV Player, so obviously aim to shoot it this year, workshop it, shoot it this year, edit it this year. I'd like it to get on STV. If we got money and we get investment in it and people believe in it, you know, it's like, I don't know, like even when you look at the budget, like I put like 20 grand of my money into part 2, so there's no logical reason to do this shit with movies, you know what I mean? But like when I looked at the board at Blaze and Griffin, where we'd done the sound design and the grade and stuff like that, I remember like one day going in and seeing like all these production companies with all these budgets, and it was like Garry Fraser, and I was just like, yeah, fuck you, fuck you. It's like, they shouldn't be here, but it's culture. Like for me, it's important. Like Scotland is colonised, you know, like they didn't want folk making films, especially know about security services and its role in the war on drugs, you know.
Yeah, well that was the thing that jumped out to me, was the story gets bigger than Muirhouse.
Yeah, like of course.
Yeah.
Like, even for part 3, like basing it in a high school, for example, so now I can take on like social media bullying, fucking self-harm, mental health crisis, funding, like, so now, like, I guess that's the way that's why I design characters the way that I do. Like, these characters, security services, a chance for me to look at foreign policies and other shit that I can put in, or like sex tapes, corruption, like in a very short, you know, there's just nods to them. You're not like taking on it as plot per se, but it's all there, and that's what I liked about it as well. So I guess for part 3, like, I hear a lot of people bitching about like refugees and immigrations and stuff like that these days. So like, to make a character like somebody who's a child who's been trafficked into the country is important for me as well, because it's like how do I raise empathy for something that I believe in? Like, I think we're too dismissive of people who like arrive here through war-torn countries that we've destabilised. So I was like, okay, well, this guy's Polish, so we've not destabilised Poland, not in my knowledge recently. But obviously need a bit of creative license in it as well. But it's good. It's not
yeah. Well, it's like your cathartic journey continues.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, we will we'll link up to as much of Garry's work as we can so that you can check it out. Definitely check out. Was it the BAFTA for Everybody's Child?
Yeah, Everybody's Child.
Yeah,
and Trainspotting, so I got picked up too. Like one for T2 as well. I had to pick up Danny Boyle, so he messaged me and says he was in New York. Can I pick up his BAFTA? So I had to go to the BAFTAs, pick up his one.
You're like, not again.
fuck. But I was good.
There's no room on my shelf, Danny.
Well, what I says to him, when I done the thing, I didn't realise that like a big guy for Game of Thrones, that James Cosmos or whatever. So he was like, you need to say something to them on that Edith Bowman, like pushing me on the stage. Like, you need to say something to them. And I was just like, I didn't know. The only thing I'd experienced of that really before was like the movie Aeroplane, you know, it was like a war speech or whatever. So I basically says, I'm Garry Fraser, I'm Danny Boyle's love child, and the whole place just started laughing. I didn't know what to do. I was so nervous, and I wasn't on drugs this time. I wasn't drinking. It was fucking horrible. I survived it.
If you had one piece of advice for anyone that wanted to be a filmmaker,
make as much as possible and study the craft. Like for me, like, there's certain things that you can study, like the Walter Mutch's in The Blink of an Eye, or Robert McKee's story. Like there's certain script writing books, there's certain like camera books, there's certain. It's a craft, and I think if to study a craft, you need to do it like every day, and sacrifice and discipline comes a lot now. Do you know what I mean? Like for me anyway, like no social life really, like no, like people think you're weird because you make movies, because you didn't really. You have to be a bit of a weirdo to make movies. You can't be like your pals, because then all your pals will be making movies. So like. You know, like technology changes, but I don't think story and emotion has ever changed. I think there's new ways to tell the story, but I think you should study craft and do it on a daily basis.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Good advice. Well, thanks very much for coming along. It has been inspiring, I think, and it's some fucking story. But yeah, we're going to get you back to talk about movies at some point. We'll do one of our daft episodes where we just riff.
We'll get you on for rom-coms or something.
Yeah. Yeah, movies set in Glasgow. That's what we'll do.
Specialist subjects.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much, and thank you again for tuning in, and do the like and subscribe thing, because we have to. So cheers. See you later.
Thank you, guys.